Hi, my name is Shadrach Roberts, and I'm an assistant professor for GIS at Clark University. Prior to this, I worked for the crowdsourcing software company Ushahidi and at the U.S. Agency for International Development, where I helped co-found the agency's GeoCenter. So I've looked at a lot of the challenges around geographic data, around its collection, its management, its use, in a wide variety of contexts and at different scales. And for me, when we start to think about addressing some of these challenges, it's really about the specific contexts. They can be very, very different and have very different meanings. For example, if I'm in the middle of a disaster, I'll give you any piece of data you want about me as long as it ensures the safety of me and my family. Obviously, when I'm not in a disaster, I don't want to do that. So I think that when we talk about the ethics of geo, we have to pick really specific problems and really specific contexts and make some progress there and prioritize different solutions at different scales. I would use my EthicalGEO fellowship to fund a workshop around a specific problem, to create a prototype solution, but also a series of open source outputs that could act as a toolbox for different organizations or people in different contexts to actually pull diverse stakeholders together and start making some progress on some of these questions. My example for this is the last project I worked on with Ushahidi, where we integrated with the United Nations Humanitarian Data Exchange, or HDX. HDX is an online platform for sharing humanitarian information. And we wanted to make it possible for someone working at a community level to gather data and make it available to humanitarians in a more formal environment of HDX. But doing so required that their data adhere to certain formats and certain standards. And communicating those and allowing a user to understand those and produce those required a lot of design thinking. We had to use a lot of human-centered design or design approaches to build a really smooth process for a user. So I would like to build on that previous work and relationships to continue that process using those same tools, but to look at the question of personally identifiable information for the humanitarian data exchange and for anyone who's creating software with a mobile data collection component. So the process would have three primary or open source components. The first is that we would document the process. What are the facilitation tools you use? What questions do you ask? How do you bring different people to the table to identify a common problem and start to solve it and prioritize what you can do and what you can't? The second would be the actual design itself, whether these are design specifications or whether it's an actual piece of technology. This would be open source for others to use or build upon. And then finally, there would be open access research around this process and around the tool and some of these questions more broadly. And this is where we would start to get at maybe ideas for policy changes or policies around best practices and things like that. So I want to thank the American Geographical Society for starting this conversation. I think that's one that's long overdue. Thank you very much.